Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a series that I started earlier this year. I think I did 4 episodes, then kind of stopped. It's just a quick little video just talking about some albums that I have never owned in any format. These are albums that could have been ones that were overplayed, ones that are considered, huge, massive albums that I just didn't want to get into the hype. Some just being so like I just wanted to be so pig-headed as to not get them. Um, and a lot of people in the VC were worried about me, and actually ended up gifting me a few of these albums, which I was not expecting at all when I started the series. Albums like Purple Rain, for example. I got that. Geez, what's another one that I got? Thriller was another one that I got. Rumors, The Joshua Tree. So, my friends out there like Rich Strickler, Aaron Mutha Alamayer, hooked me up with a couple of those albums, and JT over at JT's Record Room. So I'm always appreciative of those guys and everybody. Before I start, please subscribe if you haven't. I am inching closer and closer to 600 subscribers, and would love to get there before the year's end. So please, please, please help me out with that if you watch and aren't subscribed. So let me just jump right into this. 10 albums that I don't have. Episode 5, I believe. Number 1, Deja Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. This is one that I know a lot of people have been talking about recently, especially with the Record Store Day exclusive of alternate versions that came out, I believe, earlier this year. Again, I have a greatest hits of Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and I know I've talked about not having the debut for similar reasons. Just so many of those songs are on their greatest hits that I just didn't see the need to, buy the album just to pick up, the extra 2 or 3 tracks, especially when I'm not a diehard Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young fan. If it was somebody like Tom Petty or Bob Dylan, I'm obviously going to be a completist, or even Van Morrison, John Prine, guys like that. But those groups that I like, but are kind of outliers, like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, the Who, groups like that, where I like them. Actually, even the Who a lot more so than Crosby, Stills and Nash. I'm just not interested in filling out my catalog. Not that they're great albums, but they're just ones I never think about picking up. Number 2, Surrealistic Pillow by Jefferson Airplane. I know my friend Glenn Kellaway is a big fan of the San Francisco rock scene out of the mid and late 60s. Groups like the Airplane, the Grateful Dead, the Velvet Underground, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. Uh, they're just not ones that I reach for. I love Grace Slick. I love Paul Kantner. All those guys out of the Airplane. And I've heard probably half of Surrealistic Pillow. Actually, I gave it to my dad probably 10 years ago as a present because he loves Grace Slick's voice. That's the one. It's got White Rabbit on it. It's got Somebody to Love, and probably their most successful album, that one, and then maybe Volunteers. But yeah, Surrealistic Pillow, another one. Number 3, probably no surprise to people, but it's one that's talked about a lot, especially by guys like Glenn Kellaway and Larry Graves. It's In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. It's their debut album, I believe. Robert Fripp at the helm. One of the earlier prog rock albums. I know the song 21st Century Schizoid Man was a big hit for them. Well, big in the sense that, prog rock can be a hit. It's got the crazy cover on it of like the guy with his mouth open, but it's just not one that I've ever reached for. It's actually one that I never really heard of until joining YouTube here a couple of years ago. So, In the Court of the Crimson King. Number 4, I just talked about them, Velvet Underground and Nico, the album with the banana where you can peel it and see what happens. Of course, we all know what happens. The Andy Warhol cover. I'm not a big Lou Reed guy. So, any of the Lou Reed albums, I don't have anything. The closest thing I have to a Lou Reed album is Lou Reed guest performing on a Bob Dylan live tribute album from the 30th anniversary of his career at Madison Square Garden in 1992. So yeah, Velvet Underground, 1963. I mean 2003. So yeah, no Lou Reed. Number 5 is by Captain Beefheart, Trout Mask Replica. Again, one of those weird albums that everybody kind of seems to have, but it's not one that you can find in the wild because it becomes such a cult album. I know it's one of those where you have to listen to it, 100 times to understand, to get it, to love it. He's got a voice that makes Tom Waits look like Frank Sinatra. Music seems to be all over the place. I've listened to selections of it, how to turn it off, but it's one that I wouldn't mind owning. If I ever saw it, I would pick it up. But that's another one I don't have. Another one, Cheap Thrills by Big Brother and the Holding Company. Of course, it's got like the comic strip artwork on the front. Janis Joplin. Again, I believe my friend Robert S. gave me a Janis Joplin greatest hits that I have and thoroughly enjoyed. But I'm not a diehard Janis Joplin fan, and thus, am not out to find her whole catalog. This is one that you can still find in a Barnes & Noble on CD, or even a record, but it's not one that I ever reach for. Yeah, and so number 7 is Disraeli Gears by Cream. It's got the really trippy artwork on it. I know Glenn Kellaway's a big fan. It's got songs, I think Sunshine of Your Love is on that. Obviously Cream had Clapton, Ginger Baker, and Jack Bruce. Power trio, rock, blues at their finest. Again, I'm not a big Clapton guy. I'm not a big blues rock guy. So this is one that has slid under the table. Number 8, it's probably a surprise to people. I'm a Bob Dylan completist, but I don't have everything by Bob Dylan. And one of the albums that I don't have is the Basement Tapes, the album that came out in the 70s, Bob Dylan and the band. The reason I don't have it partly is because I have the complete Basement Tapes box set that came out as a bootleg series a few years back. It's got every, I believe every recorded note that could be found from the recording sessions at the house at Big Pink up in New York. And I know the Basement Tapes has a lot of overdubs, thanks to Robbie Robertson. A lot of it was stuff that was done years after the Basement Tapes actually happened. So it's not a true bootleg, even though it was marketed as such. Not one that I have. Again, I will get it at some point, but I always hold off on it because it's usually, $15 or $20, and I'm like, I just don't know if I want to buy it because I don't know how often I would listen to it. But that's a Bob Dylan album that I'm missing. Number 9, big one. It's one of those albums that seems to appear in every record collection. That's Whipped Cream and Other Delights by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass Band. We all know the album cover, the lady in Whipped Cream, which is actually shaving cream. She was actually pregnant at the time of the photo shoot, to understand. Herb Alpert's biggest album, it's a staple of 60s instrumental pop, horns, and just great feel-good sunshine music. And one that I've never owned. So that's number 9. And number 10, again, another stalwart in top albums of all time, London Calling by The Clash. I love The Clash. Well, I like The Clash a lot. I have nothing against The Clash. This is just an album that I've never picked up, never thought about picking up. Songs like Train in Vain, London Calling, Rock the Casbah, I Fought the Law, all great stuff. I love The Clash. I like The Clash. I'm sorry. I said, two different, stance. I did 2 different stances on The Clash, like, love, what have you. But London Calling is one that at some point I will get, but I just don't have it yet. So thank you all for watching. Hope this was enjoyable. I'm happy to semi bring this series back. Hopefully it'll be semi-regular, if I can think of more albums that I don't have. But let me know if I'm crazy for not having any of those albums. Again, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. In the meantime, y'all be good. Take care. Talk to y'all real soon. Bye now.